So, Jonathan, if you had any advice for real estate agents in today's market, what is the best advice that you can give?
If I could go back when I first got my license, I mean, again, I've been doing this for 21 years, I would have told myself from day one, you have to differentiate yourself. There are 20,000 agents in Middle Tennessee. Everyone's trying to talk about their service, how great they are, like their personality. Create real value for a client that they can easily and quickly recommend. So what would that be? For me personally, I would have gone from day one and like, commissions commoditize me as an agent. When I say I charge like everyone else, I'm a commodity. I'd have gone from day one. It's like, you know what? I'm going to build up a volume of, I think we have over 25,000 people in our database right now. For an agent who's hacking 5 or 6 deals a year, you don't have enough volume of people that you've added value to their life to be able to grow a durable business. So for me, it was very simple. Fee for service. Here's our fees structure. Here's the services that we offer.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to do more deals. And whenever you have more at bats, you do thousands of transactions, you start to get better and better and better and better and better and better. So you have to move out of what the masses are doing. You have to move yourself beyond the noise and say, I'm going to do a business model that has a blue ocean, that I don't have to compete for business. I can go out there and literally win every day.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Tonya Esquibel Real Estate Show, here every Saturday from noon to 1, the original real estate show right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN with my co-host, Kim Hollingshead, Hollingshead and Associates. And Kim, it is always so much fun recording with you. If anyone wants to kind of see how much fun we're actually having, just go look at our social media post behind the scenes, and you can actually see the faces behind the mic because we love what we do. We love helping people get into home ownership. We love highlighting amazing real estate agents, amazing builders that continue to pave the way for home ownership and for people to achieve the American dream. And you have another amazing guest on today, which I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But I do have to do a call out to you.
Okay.
I do. So if you're just tuning in for the first time or you've been a listener for a while, like Kim has been co-hosting with me probably pretty much almost a year now. And I had this little freak accident where I broke my little fingers on my dominant right hand.
Yes.
And it is just not a fun journey to learn how to use your left hand. But from a blessing standpoint, your body adapts. That's how great God is, because your body will learn to survive and adapt in a different cycle.
Really?
So that is really interesting to me, which I would have never known if this didn't happen to me. But the most beautiful thing through that journey was you actually had something delivered on my front doorstep. And I have lived in downtown Nashville probably for like 7 years. And it was from Puffy Muffin. Every single day I used to do meetings at Puffy Muffin. It was breakfast, lunch, breakfast, lunch, breakfast, lunch, because our office was like across the street. And that was the only thing that was there. And you can never go wrong with Puffy Muffin. So my husband like has someone bring upstairs this little bag of Puffy Muffin, and it has tortilla soup, banana nut bread, and it's a beautiful cup. You've got to go check out our YouTube to be able to see us in person right now, because we're twinking. And it was the sweetest thing ever. And so not only do you make a difference in our real estate industry from a leader standpoint, because you're on the board of the Mortgage Bankers Association, but also just helping builders and clients get to that closing table and giving them the keys. I always said, you have the easiest job because you give them the keys, but you really don't.
I do.
Because it is hard in navigating what we do behind the scenes that a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah.
And so not only are you a boss babe, that I say, but your heart is so big. And so I just wanted to say thank you so much. It meant the world to me to get that little sweet gift. And I was like,
welcome.
I mean, it wasn't just one meal. It was like, I've been eating on it for 3 days. It was so much food. And my kids came over on Sunday for like our family pool day, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is the best banana nut bread ever!" And I was like, "You guys have not been to Puffy Muffin," because when we were doing those meetings, they were out in California. So she has a really big heart, and I always tell everyone, if you're listening right now, you have a choice with your title company. Don't just always choose who your agent says to go with, who your builder, make sure, because it is an important process. And a lot of times I feel like doing this for 29 years, people just assume the title company is just doing the transaction. You are not transactional. You are very involved, customer service.
Yes.
And actually go the extra mile to make sure clients are taken care of, that they don't even know that they're not taken care of. So if you have a choice, which we know you do have a choice, please call Hollingshead and Associates. Kim, the best co-host I've had in many years, and her heart is so big, not only from just doing a sweet little gesture with my surgery with my broken hand, but also making sure her clients get to that closing table every single time and has the honor to give those keys. And so I wanted to say thank you.
Oh,
With that being said, you have a choice to your title company. And she always brings the most amazing guests in our city. Nashville is a city that's on the map, that continues to be talked about nationally. We've had an election this year. Don't want to go into politics today, but you have a wonderful guest. And so I always say, when you bring on the best guests that you know, and you know their heart, I know their heart because of our relationship. I'm going to let you introduce them.
Oh, Jonathan Harris, the owner of Scout Realty, is here with us today. And one of the smartest people I know, honestly, can say that truly. He's somebody who's super creative, very visionary, very on top of the next thing in real estate and in mortgage, and just has tons of experience. And you grew up in the business, right?
Born and raised in Nashville, and my dad was a broker in the 70s and 80s, so my job as a 5-year-old was to trade out the MLS books in the broker's office.
Oh, wow.
Every month you get the new books.
You look too young to have done that.
I've been around for a minute around real estate, so I have seen a perspective of whenever you trade out MLS books every month, and then everything from how they would access properties. I mean, it's unbelievable what real estate was and what it is now. So yes, I've seen everything.
The transformation. So please tell our guests a little bit about you and a little bit about Scout.
Yeah, I'm Jonathan Harris, and I've been in real estate. This is my 21st year. My dad was a broker, so I was kind of born and raised around real estate. He built houses and ran a brokerage, and that's all I ever knew. So when I went to college, I remember in college, I didn't want to live in the dorms. I wanted my own house, so I went and got a no doc loan, stated income, zero doc loan, and I couldn't believe that they gave me a loan. I'm, I think, 19 or 20 at the time, and I bought this house with no money down, and then I had my friends pay me rent. I'm like, man, I'm making $1,200 a month cash flow in a house that I put nothing down. I was like, this is too good to be true. So I went out and started buying up every house that I possibly could in the early and mid 2000s, and that was before 2008. And then we all realized that the stated income no doc loans are not good for the economy in general. But I took full advantage of it
at the time.
At the time.
Yeah. And as you should. I mean, the programs were available. That's the challenge that we hear a lot about is, why did lenders loan those monies? And it was like Wall Street gave those options, and the government actually gave those options to be able to do that, to create home ownership. And I do feel like, I don't want to get in too much in the weeds, but I do feel like we're going back to that now that we're seeing interest rates, 7.78, 8.25%.
Yes.
We are, now it's not called BC paper, which that's what we used to call it, subprime. Now it's called non-qualified mortgage.
Yep.
So, but yes, that is so awesome that you actually took advantage of that opportunity at such a young age. And tell us more about it. I'm excited to hear.
Coming out of college, I just bought and sold houses and was flipping houses in 2008. It was around March of 2008. It was like the faucet got turned off. And I remember I had 4 different banks that I had lines of credit with. And it was almost like they all got together on the same week and all decided to call their loans due on the same week. And I'm like, why don't I have windows in this house? And I don't have a roof on that house. And they're like, yeah, things are changing. We've got to pull back on our lines of credit. And I was too young and inexperienced at the time to understand what was really happening. It wasn't me, it was everyone.
Right.
They just were not going to lend speculative money. And so I started using up my cash to finish houses, and then I couldn't sell the houses, and then I was trying to rent them out, and then people kept losing their job. And that 2008 season, I mean, it was real. 2008 to 2011, it was a really, really, really hard time. And so I experienced that, how bad things could be for a period of time. And so, having been through a few real estate seasons and cycles, this one right here is different. All of them are different, but there is some bit of reminiscing of where we have come from. And so, if you haven't been in the business and seen like the good, the bad, and the ugly, not just in like transactions going sideways, but in a recession or depression, in a sense, to where you literally can't get yourself to move property or to get clients to make decisions or to make money. I mean, it's just a really interesting season.
Yeah.
I do feel like that that is so refreshing that you went through that season, because we went through that season. I've been doing this for 29 years, and I cannot wait for listeners to hear your perspective between that market in 2008 and this market, because it is a different market. There is a trend, but there also is things I've not seen ever in my 29 years that we are walking into. And a lot of people are sitting on the fence because they're like, is this a bubble again? I don't think it's a bubble. I would love to hear your perspective on that when we come back from a break, from, boots on the ground, real estate. But in the mortgage industry, we are the lowest we've been in over 20 years. So obviously that reciprocates to the real estate industry. More cash buyers. The multi-million-dollar arena seems to be performing way better than our first-time home buyers. I was average loan amount when I moved here in 1997, like $150,000. Your average loan amount right now for a first-time home buyer is upper threes, low fours, and that is challenged to be able to find something unless you go further out into the suburbs. So would love to hear more about that. If you're just now tuning in, this is Tonya Esquibel of the Tonya Esquibel Real Estate Show. Kim Hollingshead, my co-host, and Jonathan is here with Scout, the owner, founder, correct, of Scout Real Estate. And we're going to continue to talk about, because even though interest rates are rising, even though we talk about the trends of real estate, most people build their wealth around real estate in the long term, because you have to have a place to live. And it's better to own it and have some appreciation regardless of the interest rate. So I'm curious of what your take is on this new season that we are in, that we started a year ago in January. I was quoting, a year ago, January, let's go back to December, into that year, 2 7/8, 3 1/4. And then in January last year, we just started rising interest rates. And so I think people have put the brakes on because we were so spoiled by those low rates.
Yeah.
But it does not mean it's not a good time to continue to invest in real estate, especially if you're in Nashville, when we are one of the top cities in the nation. So stay tuned. You're listening to the Tonya Esquibel Real Estate Show right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome back to the Tonya Esquibel Real Estate Show, here every Saturday from noon to 1. So excited every week to educate consumers on real estate and how to build wealth through real estate. My co-host, Kim Hollingshead Associate, has been amazing, not only helping me and the clients that come through my mortgage company, but also our listeners, and also working with so many realtors throughout and builders throughout Middle Tennessee. And you actually do continuing education, which we can talk about that on a future episode. So, I started this real estate show years ago because I was passionate about education. You know the story. If you're just now tuning in, I was going to be a biology teacher. And somehow, some way, thank goodness, the Lord introduced me into teaching people how to buy real estate and to achieve the American dream. So Kim has Jonathan Harris. He is the owner of Scout Real Estate. And we were just talking about, if you're tuning in right now, 2008, how was that season different from today?
Right.
And 2008, a couple of things, and I want you to share from your perspective. Obviously, you went through the waves as well. But in 2008, what I felt that I saw on the mortgage side, yes, we were like fast and easy, no ratios, stated income, stated asset. Not only did we do that from an A paper standpoint, Wall Street and investors came out and gave it to a subprime buyer. So someone with a 580 credit score doing stated income. So you could have a W-2 employee at Starbucks, say they make $100,000 a year, and it would just go through underwriting. So a lot of people have a bad taste in their mouth about lending and mortgages because of that season. But we have to realize we only produce the products that are giving to us to offer to the public to create home ownership.
Yeah.
there was an oversupply of inventory. Today, we have an undersupply of inventory. For the first time in my career, I got in the business in 1995. I saw something come over to me quoting a 9.99. I have never, and that is what you're doing with construction loans. If you look at prime, where we're at, because the Fed continues to raise prime. If you're doing a construction loan, you're probably in the nines right now, with prime continuing to increase. So it's not where we were in 2008. It's a different market from my perspective when it comes to rates, obviously being higher. But what about inventory? What about demand? Like, what are you seeing? Because it always confuses me, because I'm like, why doesn't the consumer go get the money first? But they never do. They always look at a house and call you first and then try to figure out the money. That's always confused me. This is my lending hat. It always confuses me. It's like going to the mall and you want to buy all this stuff and you don't have a credit card. And then you figure out, oh, I want to buy all this stuff. How do I get my credit card?
Yes.
So that's how I feel from a lending standpoint.
That's a great analogy.
But from your standpoint, because you are the first person that consumers talk to, your agents, I know you're a broker owner. What are you seeing in this season that is different from 2008 to help share our listeners and to educate them?
Yeah, every market's built on consumer confidence. Their consumer confidence can come in the form of political confidence or the financial industry or the financial markets. Right now, there seems to be a short-term pessimism, long-term optimism. And so people are thinking in terms of, like, hey, I don't want to buy a house right now, but it seems as if, after the first year, rates will probably go down. I'm like, where are you reading that? Like, what's forming your decision making? So I'm starting to realize is that every buyer has some bit of decision making process, and they're listening to many different sources of information. There used to be a very low number of real estate agents. Like when I got in the business, I was one of the very few younger people, because it was kind of an older person's game, because they have people who are at their peers are buying houses, whereas when I was in my early 20s, nobody was buying a house. So when I look back at where we came from in 2008, it seems like there was more pessimism long term, like we're in this for years. And so you might want to go look for a job. It seems like right now, hey, this might just blow over in a couple months. It's hard to know like who's right or wrong, but I do think that when I look back at 2008 and I compare it to where we are today, used to people would look at election cycles, whether they're midterm elections for the House and Senate, or whether they were presidential elections every 4 years. It seemed like every 2 years there's some bit of cycles of, well, we're going to wait to see what the election does, and after the election, then we're going to make decisions. That's consumer confidence. It doesn't really matter who got elected. It seems like there's always a pause about we want to see what's going to happen, and that consumers would then develop some bit of confidence around what they should do next. What I've noticed about this time is all of a sudden people are like, well, we're going to wait till the next Fed meeting. What? A Fed meeting? Like, that was not a statement that people would make years ago. It's like every quarter we're going to wait till the next Fed meeting. I mean, people know who our Fed chair is now. That was not necessarily who people would make decisions in the past. Nobody's like, I'm going to wait to see what Greenspan does before I buy a house. It was more or less, well, we're going to see if Clinton gets, elected again. I mean, those were the types of discussions that I would have at 2008-ish.
Yes.
Now it's like, well, depends on what Powell's going to do. You know who Jerome Powell is? I mean, like that. And so there seems like every 3 months there's like this horizon of we're going to wait to see what the Fed does. We're going to wait to see. I think that there's just short-term pessimism, long-term optimism, especially as it starts to relate to a city. And so I think that it's easy to be bullish on Nashville. Nashville seems to be untouchable in a lot of consumer confidence and then publications. But I talk to brokers all over the country. I talk to brokers internationally. And what's ironic is like my software developers, they're all over the world. So my chief engineer is in Amsterdam. We have people in Spain. We have people in Portugal. We have people in South America. So I'm talking to them about what's going on in their countries. Everyone seems to have the exact same stories around, man, things are selling like lights out, like multiple offers over asking the last couple of years. No matter if I have a broker friend in Hawaii, broker friend in Charleston, South Carolina, broker friend in California, everyone's like, man, these interest rates are killing us. So I think that real estate has moved beyond being local in some ways. It used to be location, 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 your local market. I find that these decision makers, especially around the Fed interest rate, when they make a decision, the entire country and sometimes the entire world hiccups, and everybody's like, "Whoa, things are changing. Money supply is being pulled out of the market." So when we talk about supply and demand and low inventory, I think that it's an issue of buyers' purchasing power and an issue of buyers' confidence. And I think that whenever you can marry their purchasing power and confidence, right now it's at a maybe even an all-time low. And that would even say in 2008. I think one of the things that we have to be mindful, and I'm often asked about, what do you think about the commercial markets? Mark Zuckerberg just said everybody has to come back to work for Facebook. You cannot work remote. You've got to come back home. So I think what's kind of interesting, unique to this period from what it was in 2008, is you have so many office spaces that are vacant because a work remote has become prevalent. And it seems to me like if you're paying employees to work remotely, and we have a lot of clients who relocated here from all over the country, but they're still on the salaries that they were receiving from New Jersey, from Chicago, from the Bay Area. But they're getting that salary, but living in Nashville. I think whenever you see Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk make statements like, either you come back to work here physically or you find another job. If companies either make the play of, you have to come back and work physically here, are you going to leave Nashville to keep the salary that you were getting there? Or are you going to quit that job and look to maintain that salary? Because Nashville's not going to pay you the same amount of money as you were getting in the Bay Area. And when you go out there to have to find a new job, to pay the monthly payment is going to put pressure on you. If you have those large companies that are either you're losing money in office space and vacancy because people went to work remote and probably moved somewhere else in the country, either you call them back home and fill up your office space, or B, you just embrace the work remote and you say, you know what? We're going to fully embrace work remote. We're not going to have this vacant office space. Let it go. However, if we're going to have a work remote employee base, we're going to put out that position for a request for proposal, and we're going to start to look to hire people in cheaper markets like Omaha, Nebraska,
Right.
Peoria, Illinois, Chattanooga. I'm not going to pay a salary for a large city. If we're going to fully embrace the work remote, we're going to put it out for the country to find developers or software engineers, people that can support in where the cost of living is just much cheaper in middle America. If that trend starts to happen, either you get called back to work remote, it's going to put pressure on the local housing market. Or if you start to put it out, that position for a request for a proposal, and you're like, you can either take a $30,000 price or a salary cut, or we're going to hire someone in a cheaper market. I really think that's going to affect home ownership to where the people who already have housing, whereas in the past it was a subprime and like the stressed asset, now it's like, I'm getting my cheese moved. Someone has said, you can bend the knee and take a salary reduction, or you can move back, or you can try to go find a job in the market that you live in, but you're probably not going to get what you're already getting paid elsewhere.
That's such an interesting idea.
That's going to be pressure.
That is going to add some pressure to the market. Well, we're already in a low inventory market. So how have you seen buyers change, over the years? Because from what I hear from a lot of agents is that, it's just a different kind of buyer than we've ever had before too. And I'm sure you've seen that as well, right? Borrowers are just different.
Yeah, I feel like that when it comes from the financing standpoint, anytime we've had these cycles with interest rates rising, kind of a compression of the market, you're going to get people that are going to come out that did not think they could own a home are now getting off the fence. And so you see more challenge, creative financing that we're trying to get through, lower credit scores, because they know, wait, rates are rising. I need to jump in right now. And so for me, the last probably 18 months, we have had more unique situations. And I don't mean to say I help all clients. Like, I love first-time home buyers. We have a program to help people increase their credit scores to buy a home. But we actually have clients that have really high credit scores, but don't fit the box of the income requirements, because that's another thing that we have to talk about too. Everyone's income stream is not traditional what it was 10 years ago. When we went through this in 2008, you're either a W-2, you're self-employed. Now you've got people that have stock investments, they've got this income, and they could look really good on paper, but if they don't fit the underwriting box, they don't fit the underwriting box. And that's where we open up non-QM loans, which non-QM, pushes people out of the market because the rates are so high.
Right.
And then you've got affordable housing. That's such a big issue. Like we mentioned, opening up the show. I mean, my average loan amount when I moved here in 1997 was like $150,000, $170,000. And now it's easily, upper threes, low fours. So that makes a big difference too. And then you put interest rates on top of it, it truly affects their purchasing power. It's not unachievable. Where I see the difference on the mortgage side is when we had interest rates higher in the past, we had really aggressive ARMs. We had interest-only programs. We continued to move people into home ownership. What I'm seeing on this side is a roadblock of we don't have aggressive ARMs. We don't have aggressive interest-only programs. And so that is where I feel like we're creating this thing with buyers that they want to buy.
Yeah.
It's just an affordability issue. The inventory is limited. You've got builders right now have inventory. So from a mortgage standpoint, I've always worked with builders. You know that my whole career. I'm the president of the Home Builders Association in Middle Tennessee for Metro Nashville chapter. I just love building. I love going through the process with them. But resale agents, what I see the challenge is, you've got these sellers that have a 2.5% to 3.25% rate. They probably really want to move. Maybe in some cases, is it school? Is it job? But they don't want to give up that rate to go to a 7.5% to 8% rate. And so that's where we're constricted with inventory. And so that limits our buyers' options that are out there. And from the mortgage standpoint, we can get creative all day long and do, I've not done the 3-2-1 buy down, 2-1 buy down for years, right? It's out there, but buyers are scared of that. And I'm like, why would you not do that? If you could start in a home at 4.5% and step into home ownership the next year 5.5%, and if you think in your mind, as you mentioned, rates are coming down, where are you getting your news from? But if rates are coming down and you can refinance into a lower interest rate, why would you not go 3% below what the 30-year fixed is right now? So I think there's a lack of education, not only to the consumer, but a lack of education from the general real estate agents. I feel like builders have a better advantage on it because they have been doing it a lot longer.
And they control the product.
They went through the cycles. They control the product. I've got builders giving $25,000 to be able to buy down an interest rate, to where the general real estate agent could do the same with the seller. It's just an education process of how to do it. So I feel like there's just such a void in education when it comes to, yes, interest rates are rising, but if you've got a really good real estate agent and they're educating their sellers and educating the buyers, and we're working together as a team, it is still a good time to buy, because in Nashville, we are a good city and there's a lot of growth. So I'm being told by Dylan, we got to take a break, Kim. So if you're just now tuning in, you're listening to the Tonya Esquibel Real Estate Show right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and continue to talk about from one of the leading real estate owners in Nashville, Music City, on how he is looking at the perspective and how he's coaching and being above the challenges that a lot of agents just don't have that coaching. And I'm so excited, Kim, that you brought him on board. So stay tuned. You're listening to the Tonya Esquibel Real Estate Show right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thank you so much for listening to the Tonya Esquibel Real Estate Show here every Saturday from noon to 1. If you would like to find out your purchasing power and try to achieve home ownership, it is easier than you think. Give us a call, 615-300-0794, 615-300-0794. Every Saturday with me is my co-host, Kim Hollingshead with Hollingshead & Associate. And Jonathan is here, the owner, founder of Scout Real Estate. And Kim, I'm going to let you take this segment away because off the air, we had some great questions, and Jonathan had some really great advice for our listeners.
Yes, Jonathan has the best advice, and he really does. He's one of the smartest people. So, so listening to the show, we've got buyers and sellers and agents. So, well, if you were representing a buyer, how would you guide that buyer in today's market?
For a buyer right now. Two things. One is, you have to understand where they currently are, what's their current living situation. And so it doesn't make sense for everyone to make a decision to move. Now listen, as loan officers, as agents, as title people, we get paid when people make decisions to move. I think that if we're going to act as a true fiduciary, we have to understand it's important to put their needs ahead of ours and play the
Of
long game
course.
with them.
Of course.
And so if a buyer is in a situation where it makes sense for them to move, so I kind of want to give that as a caveat. It's like, it makes sense for them to move. Now what should we do? So I don't want to like give this is a sales tactic to get people to make decisions that works against them.
Yeah.
If it makes sense for them to move under circumstances, this is what I would do. Right now, look for any house that's sitting whose days on the market. It's over 30 days. Typically a balanced market 6 months, but right now things are not moving the first week. It's like the market has rejected this house. We're telling buyers right now, think in terms of what interest rate would get you excited for you to make a move on this house. You're like, yeah, I mean, if interest rates were 4.5, I'd buy it. Or if they were 5%, I would buy it. Like, what is the interest rate that you need to be at to make a decision? So, it's kind of odd. People look in terms of what's the interest rate, and then they go calculate their monthly payment. Like, figure out what your monthly payment needs to be, and then make the offer on the house to fit that monthly payment. So here's what I mean. Let's just say, for talking purposes, there's a $500,000 house. The interest rates right now, say they're 7.25%, like too high. We would feel comfortable at 4.5 to have this monthly payment. Calculate what a 2 or 3 year overpayment would be. So let's just say it's an extra $1,500 a month. Calculate 3 years of $1,500 extra for this high interest rate, and you're kind of betting that you're going to be able to refinance in the next 3 years. Negotiate that off the asking price. So in a sense, you're buying your cushion. And so I think it's a pretty simple calculation. If it's $500,000, it's $1,500 a month. It's 3 years. What's our offer? Make your offer based on that. And listen, a lot of sellers are like, no way, we'd never come that low. But it's your offer. This is what we would feel comfortable with. Because of the interest rates, we're going to counterbalance that with an offer that makes sense to us. We're going to overpay in the short term monthly, but we've bought the price at a low enough basis that we can refinance later. So if you're a buyer, look to calculate 2 to 3 year savings and take that off of the asking price and just start making low offers.
Oh, that's
not
great
just an
advice.
arbitrary number like, okay, let's go 50,000 low on these 10 houses. No, we're going to go 37.5 off of these houses because that makes sense to us. And we're going to be disciplined about it. We're going to make sure that we're building in some bit of cushion for us to refinance down the road. So if you have a good agent, you have your calculations of what that overpayment monthly would be, you have your calculations of your refinance, get to work and start making offers.
That's really great advice.
That's
really
awesome.
smart advice. So as you're working with sellers, then how are you setting their expectations?
Yeah, it's really hard right now because the sellers have seen what their neighbors have sold for. They're seeing what we have come through. And sometimes they just haven't quite got adjusted to the current reality. So we're in this business every day. I mean, we have our finger on the pulse and it's easy for us to like, oh, you're overpriced. Well, hold up. I don't feel like I'm overpriced. Like, this makes sense from what my friend down the road told me from 6 months ago. That being said, I'm just a firm believer in the marketplace. I'm a firm believer that the marketplace responds to a product and a price offering. Like when I was in college, we had the 5 P's of marketing: the product, the place, the promotion. So whenever you deliver a product to the market responds. And I believe that real estate ultimately is self-correcting. If you're priced too low, the market will not allow you to sell the house too low. It will get bid up. My partner Mackenzie, she just sold a house or went into contract on a house for a client last week, and they came out the gate at $950. We sold the next door neighbor's house that they tore down for $1.4 about 10 months ago.
Wow.
And so we're like, wait, $950? We just sold that house for $1.4, and we had some clients like, you buy this house, like this is an incredible deal. Like you go, and we went multiple offers. They ended up getting 10 offers, and they ended up getting it for $1.1. So the market will not allow you to sell it too low. So if you're a seller, the only way that you can sell your house too low is if you sell it too fast or if you sell it off the market. So I'm just a firm believer. When you list a house, anywhere from that 72 hours to 7 days, like if you get an offer in that sweet spot, I don't think you can sell it too low. If you take the first offer the first day right away, you never know what could have come. So giving yourself some bit of breathing room, let the market respond. But as real estate self-correcting, you can't sell it too low. It will naturally get bid up. You can't sell it too high either. Now, the market will make you bring your price down. So that being said, I'm a firm believer in the marketplace, and the market will respond in the form of days on the market. And I think that if sellers would share that ideology around the marketplace votes, you need to be mindful about price changes, price reductions every 2 weeks at the most. Every 14 days, you need to be making changes. And I'm a firm believer in identifying buyer pools. And when I say a buyer pool, think about how you would buy a house. If you go to Realtor.com, Zillow, Redfin, like the way consumers would go to those sites, they have calculators like, are you looking for a house between 550 and 650 or 700 and 800? Like when they're doing their searches, you identify the pool of buyers that you're in. So if you're in a $100,000 increment, don't get cute. Don't listen at $699.9. It needs to be $700,000 right on the number to have a buyer pool from 600 to 700 and 700 to 800. In the 600 and 700 price point, they're going to say, hey, this is the top end of our budget, but look at all the features of the house. It's just nicer than everything else we've looked at. You're competing for a different reason in the higher buyer pool. Well, you know, it's not as great as the other houses, but look, the price is awesome. So you're competing on condition in one buyer pool, you're competing in price in another pool. You want to price position your house to have the two broadest sets of buyers that you can attract. I'm just a firm believer that in the $100,000 increments and $50,000 increments, like you need to be right on the money. Don't get cute with it. It's not $699.9. It's not $649.9. Put it on $650. Put it on $700. Because that $100 or $1,000 where an agent's gotten cute with it, you miss out on a completely different set of people whose criteria was not within $100.
Right.
Yeah.
So if sellers, you need to be aggressive on changing your price and introducing it to buyer pools. Sometimes you can go down to a buyer pool of $50,000. If things don't hit, go right back up to where you are. I mean, we have made price changes up that have reintroduced it to a new buyer pool that have got things sold, and it's just a surprise, but it is that reintroduction.
Yeah.
That's what I
to
tell
show.
sellers.
I mean, that is so smart. So now, I mean, obviously you don't just follow the conventional wisdom that everyone has known for 20 years. Oh, well, you need to price your house at $699, right? Because that's what every agent's been told for forever. You can tell you actually, you know, follow market trends, and you're really thoughtful about your approach, and you're really just responding to what's going on out there and not just following some rule of thumb.
You have to understand what the customer's behavior patterns are, and you have to understand how they go about searching for houses.
Yeah.
And when you just go to Zillow, I mean, like think about the consumer. You haven't talked to an agent yet, and you're like, I'm just curious what we could buy between $500,000 and $650,000. Okay, they didn't say 537, and they didn't say 655. They went between whole numbers.
Yeah.
So
That is a very good point.
It's a great point
Yeah,
to make. Yeah,
is.
you can really tell, you know, the way that the consumer thinks nowadays is totally different than before. They're much smarter. They're savvier. They don't always feel like they need to have a real estate agent either. Although, I mean, would your advice be that, you know, when they're buying or selling, that they hire an agent?
I think they need it. Yes, there's certainly value in an agent. I will say that in the real estate community, in the industry as a whole, I do think that there's pressures where we are not meeting the customer's needs. And I love what Amazon, Jeff Bezos had to say is like their total obsession was about the customer. And specifically around how do you make the customer's experience faster, easier, and more affordable. Now, agents don't necessarily love the idea about, wait, we want to be more affordable, but think about how customers make decisions is like, what's the cost, what's the speed, and then what's the overall customer experience? Is it easy? And I think that, you know, whenever there's tough times or pressure on a market, it's going to have some bit of emergence of innovation, and I'm all for innovation. I'm all for the future of real estate. I really don't want to play the game that has always been. I think that it's really important for us as a community of agents to start to innovate and create advantages. So should they hire an agent? Agents have value, absolutely. In the way in which our job description, I'm not going to like hold on to this sacred cow, like this is the agent's job description, this is what we've done for decades, we got to hold on to it. No. It's time to us to evolve to meet the customer's needs in a better way. And there's plenty of ways that we can do that. And I do think that this market may break way for forever change in our industry.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning in the Tonya Esquibel Real Estate Show. Jonathan, thank you so much. Jonathan Harris, if you're just now tuning in with Scout Real Estate, we got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to continue to talk about this market. And one of the questions I have coming back for you, Jonathan, from the break is buyers and sellers. A lot of times we've been talking about buyers and sellers and what are their motivation right now, because I feel like that they have pent-up motivation. They just don't know how to get the resources. Sure. And you've provided so much information. And sometimes I get the question as a lender, hey, how do I know which agent's the best agent? And you brought up some really great points during this segment. So stay tuned. You're listening to Tonya Esquibel Real Estate Show right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome back to the Tonya Esquibel Real Estate Show here every Saturday from noon to 1 in studio at Kim Hollinghead and Associates office right now around the conference table. It's so fun to be able to record in different locations, different places, and to highlight your beautiful office. It's amazing. I know that you moved in, I believe, in May or June. So it looks gorgeous, and happy to be here. Jonathan Harris is with us with Scout. And if you're just now tuning in, you can go and check us out on social media, YouTube, our podcast. This is an episode you don't want to miss. We have one of the most brilliant broker real estate owners that's been doing this for years today on this show, explaining the market difference between 2008 and where we're at today. And I want to continue that conversation just from an education standpoint with our consumers. You know, when we went back to 2008, it was like the sellers just really didn't have an option. They're short selling, they're foreclosing, buyers were just grasping up opportunities, rates were low. If we look at today's time, it's like, what's the advantage for the seller? I've got, you know, a 2 7/8, 3 1/4 rate. Why do I want to sell, even though I maybe want to sell? We don't have over asking price bids of $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 like we did a year ago. And then the buyers over here, why would I want to buy right now, even though it's not as competitive and I might can get a house for $50,000 or $70,000 less, but interest rates have risen. So how do you guide your consumers, one, and also educate your agents, because it always goes back to the agent that they're working with.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. We work with so many agents, and I love anyone that chooses to step into real estate to teach people how to buy a home. But there is a difference between agents that do this as a full-time job, just like there is loan officers that do it as a full-time job, and continue to educate people. And I know you're on the cutting edge of that. You mentioned off the air that you talk to brokers not only within the United States, but also, you know, all over the world, internationally. And so I really want to end our show with just giving your perspective. If I'm that seller or that buyer, I mean, I own real estate, and I'm like, I don't want to sell that home because I could never get a 3 1/4 on a second home again. It doesn't exist in Florida. Or I own this home, but I also know that if I did sell the home, could I take that cash flow, upgrade, buy multiple properties? So yeah, I would love to hear your perspective on that from a seller standpoint, one, and then move into the motivation for a buyer in this market.
Sure. You know, I think with everyone in every circumstance, you have to choose your regrets. You're going to regret selling the house. You're going to regret staying in the house. There's an opportunity cost to everything.
Yeah.
And so, you know, what's hard sometimes for people to do is to pull themselves out of the current situation mentally and just kind of get above it and look at the landscape. And, you know, in finance, we talk about our present value and future value. In a way, is like, think about your present self, and not like, should we sell now? Should we buy now? Should we stay put? Should we wait? Should we rent another year? I mean, there's so many of these immediate decisions. I think you have to kind of fast forward and think about, where do I want to be? And I say fast forward, move a decade out, at least a decade out, if not 2 or 3. I mean, you have to kind of zoom forward and say, I need to make a wise decision in this present circumstance to help position me for there. And so, you know, I've seen some people just, like, I have seen buyers, for example, who have called us and they have wanted to move because the drive and the commute to the kids' school and the drop off and getting to work, like their lifestyle is horrible. But they're stuck in this 2%, 3% interest rate that they don't want to get out. But you're not happy as a person, like your soul is dying. So we're talking about an interest rate, but you're like literally wilting as a person. Like, you're so stressed out. The commute times are terrible. You're late to pick your kids up. Your boss is upset. So a lot of times whenever we think about, you know, real estate's like your home field advantage. And so I would like for people to kind of elevate above the interest rate, elevate above the immediate decision, and start to think about, what are the implications across all aspects of my life?
Yes.
And how does this impact me, not only today, but in the future? If you can kind of raise above it and say, you know what, I got to choose my regrets. I'm going to regret giving up a 2% interest rate. However, I'm going to be so thankful I have a better work-life balance. I'm going to be so thankful that my kids get to school on time. I'm so thankful that I have an extra 30 minutes at home after work that I don't have to commute across traffic. So you're going to regret losing the 2% interest rate, or you're going to stay in the 2% interest rate and regret having a lower quality of life.
Quality of life. Yeah.
So I think
It's a good point.
there's no way to not have trade-offs. So I think that it's just really important for people to get above the situation, fast forward, and choose their regrets.
Yeah, you're so future oriented in all. I mean, that's why your company is really technology based. So you were talking about having website developers all over the world, and you're not afraid to branch out and to do things in a different way. How has that really served you in your business?
For our business, we made a decision, and I'll be brief about this. A couple years ago, we had an elderly couple. They were 83 and 85. Bought a house in 12 South, lived there for 45 years, and they needed to sell because their Social Security was not enough to pay for the property taxes that just went up. And it was their exact words were, "We can no longer afford to live in the new Nashville." I was like, "Oh my God, what a bad situation." I mean, their house is worth a lot of money. They don't owe anything on it, but they can't even pay the property taxes with the Social Security that they had put away from like the 60s and 70s.
It's tough.
And I told them, I was like, "Hey, let me help you guys out. We'll just do it for a flat fee." That serendipitous moment was started to put pressure upon my own worldview about business models. And in a way, I had perpetuated my dad's business model from the 70s and 80s. Like, this is what we always do. This is the way we always charge our customers. So I think that in this landscape, when I start to think about the future and starting to put the customer at the center of the conversation and obsess about the customer experience in speed, in ease, in cost structure, what can we do to innovate our businesses as agents or as brokerages to improve the quality of life of the customer? And I do think, in some ways, it's not just a cost thing. Sometimes it's speed thing. It's a process. It's does you as an independent contractor versus your team versus your broker, who's delivering the service to the client? And I'm really excited about this current market and the pressure that it's putting, because it's going to cause people to think and to create new distinctions and new ideas about how they can build a business, instead of them just arriving and saying, "It's my birthright to receive these commissions. This is the way we've always done business, and so I'm just going to go out there and perpetuate the past for the last few decades." Versus, I need to get business and I need to start to innovate on behalf of my customers. What can we do to improve the quality of their life?
Oh, that's such a good answer.
That is a good point. So I'm going to play devil's advocate
Sure.
with that. I agree with you. If you don't change, you don't grow. And I love the fact that you just during this interview on the radio show today, you've already talked about how your company is already proactive instead of being reactive. A lot of business owners are being reactive, not proactive. If I'm out there as a seller, some of the things that I've gotten in the past, and again, I do lending, you guys do real estate, is if I get a discount broker, and this is your competition, saying I do a discount broker, am I going to get the same service? Am I going to get the same quality of photos? Am I going to get the professionalism that a full brokerage was? Because you get what you pay for. That is a saying. You do get what you pay for. So how would you answer that question to our listeners?
If that was a fear of theirs, I'd say then go find the most expensive lender in town to give you the most expensive loan with the highest interest rate and the highest closing cost fees. If you believe that, go
What
to get
an answer,
go get the
Jonathan.
most expensive. Yeah. But no realtor refers. They always say, "Hey, I've got a couple," and they start to rate shop you on an eighth of a point, and you lose a client over $37 a month.
That is correct.
So think about how customers make decisions in all things. They go to Nordstrom Rack. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, I got this." Like, "Hey, there's this discount code. It's 20% off. There's an influencer. If I use this." Look at customer behavior. It's not a real estate thing. You get what you pay for. If that's what you believe, so be it. I just believe there's many different types of people who make buying decisions. And so if someone says, "I just don't want to use a discount agent," if you call it discount, so is it. If you call it, "I want a full service agent for a fair fixed fee who is a premium," like an example, I had shoulder surgery last year. My doctor bill was $5,200 for my shoulder. We had a baby last year. Our doctor bill was $4,800. Wait, they went to school for 10 years to be able to charge $4,800 and $5,200. Our community goes to real estate for school for 2 weeks, and they all of a sudden
Just
believe
like $30,000.
$30,000. I'm worth my commission.
Yeah.
It's just a weird thing. You don't deposit percentages, you deposit cash. And I think it's just a strange thing for when we work with clients that we charge a percentage that's just an ambiguous thing versus here's my services and here's my cost structure. I don't even need to know where you live. I don't even know the price of your house. I find that a lot of agents really snuggle up and become luxury agents because you're a parasite and your clients are hosts. And you're a luxury agent because you can get the most out of them versus, you know what, I focus on teachers, policemen, firefighters, veterans, nonprofit workers. I want to work with everyone, the least of these. A lot of agents don't sign up for that because the luxury agents, you get more out of them. So I just want to flatten the playing field. I want people to say, you know what, I don't need to know how rich you are to get my pound of flesh. I want to just serve you, and here's my menu of services, and here's my cost structure. I feel really good about that. I think it's really cool to bless people. I think it's really cool to have a fair business model. I'm a capitalist, so I want to make as much money as possible. That's why we've sold about 7,500 houses across the state for a little over $1.2 billion. We're trying to do volume of deals. We make money. We love our people. We want to serve more people. So for us, sure, no client calls us a discount brokerage, but the agents keep charging the commission. Commissions commoditize you. Keep charging those. You won't be in business too long if you keep doing what everyone else is doing.
That is true. That was like a perfect answer. It's
it
amazing.
really is. Well, and then, you know, what you're talking about, which is offering buyer incentives, and you can afford to do that when you work with a fee-for-service company, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you basically choose which package you want to go with. And so if you choose a $5,000 package or a $15,000 package, then you do have that cushion to be able to work with the buyer and offer some incentives.
It just reminded me, and I know we're going to be on a hard break and in the show today, but it just reminded me of a consumer that we're doing a loan for right now. Last minute, there was an addendum for a sales price increase of $40,000 on a Friday night. The contract says if you don't close within 5 days, then you will lose your contract. We actually had my underwriting, everyone on the phone on Monday night, talking to the client, clear to close, everything resubmitted and done on Tuesday morning. Would an online internet company do that? And would that rate at 8% better? Maybe that was worth you going there, but would you have lost this home and your contract and started over in the process again? So that's a very good point that you brought up, because a lot of consumers on the real estate side think, oh, you get what you pay for. I think that on the mortgage side, from the standpoint of the quality that you're getting and moving something through the system in the mortgage world and today's compliance guidelines and getting something done within a Monday night, having people on the phone at 9 p.m. and having it redone, restructured, and another clear to close by 10 a.m. the next morning to be able to close on time so that our client did not lose their contract. And that was my passion. I love this client. He's amazing. I love all parties in the relationship, but that is the difference between what you were just saying is the heart to serve, and sometimes discounting the least or charging the most. That's not what it's about in our business model. It doesn't sound like that's about your business model. It's about making sure we serve the client the best way we can and get them to the finish line with a great product, great mortgage, great sales price, negotiate on their behalf the best that you can, but getting them to that finish line. So, Jonathan, it's been amazing. If you're just now tuning in, you're listening to the Tonya Esquibel Real Estate Show. Jonathan, you've been amazing, owner of Scout Real Estate. If you'd like to get any information about him or his agency, I know we have a lot of real estate agents that listen to our show too. He's an amazing leader, gave me so much perspective just during this interview today on our show. Give us a call, 615-300-0794, 615-300-0794. Kim, thank you as my co-host, as always, bringing on such amazing guests. Be sure and tune in next week. We're here every Saturday from noon to 1. Be sure and have a blessed week. Be safe. I know that, you know, as Nashville continues to grow, we're on the road more. So my heart just says to be safe and have a blessed week.